Finally getting around to doing a review of the latest Une Nuit Nomade fragrance. Have you gotten your nose on it yet? It's Chemin d'Amande, this one right here. It's the latest Extrait De Parfum from this house. This is the fourth. They launched 3 Extrait De Parfums late last year all together. And it included an Extrait De Parfum of my favorite fragrance. My favorite fragrance from the house is JARDIN de MISFAH. And of course, they launched JARDIN de MISFAH Extrait De Parfum. That was a Extrait De Parfum of an existing fragrance. And then they launched 2 additional Extrait De Parfums, Silver Saffron and Estrella de la Mañana, my favorite of the trio. But now we have Chemin d'Amande, which is a super delicious gourmand fragrance. And it's not a traditional gourmand to me because the type of note that is in here. It is nutty for sure. Almond is, it means almond. And I think chemin means route or path. I'm assuming they're talking with an, almond route or path or something. And love consuming almonds, and I love it in fragrances as well. And this is quite a delicious offering from Une Nuit Nomade. So it's the 4th Extrait De Parfum, launched earlier this year. I got to preview it before it launched. I also got to preview it during Paris Perfume Week. Now, I feel like there's almonds in here as the, the nuts, the fruit, I should say, or the nuts. But I also get like the blossoms in here, a bit of a blossom experience. But for me, what really stands out with this fragrance is the wheat note. There's wheat absolute in here, and it adds a kind of a grainy characteristic to the fragrance. But it's the consistency when you're wearing it does have that bit of almond butter effect, which is kind of cool. I like that. I consume almond butter. It's quite delicious. It has a great essence as well, or a great smell. So the idea of this fragrance wears like it's that, with the addition of the wheat, because wheat is a very interesting grainy ingredient in fragrances. It's a bit cereally, if that is another word to use to explain this. So it creates a dryness. For me, almonds are also dry, but there is slight creaminess in there. And with this one, it creates a very powdery experience. There's dryness for sure, and it's got a creamy undertone there. And I think we're getting the creaminess from the fact that it has a lot of vanilla, because this is vanillic in the end. It is a gourmand. It's sweet, but I wouldn't say that this is like uber sugary, tooth-rotting sweetness. It's just the right amount of sweetness, I think, to make for a delicious gourmand, not necessarily similar to a lot of others on the market. And that wheat highlighted in this fragrance makes for something different than what everybody else is releasing, if that makes sense. And the fact that this is also Extrait De Parfum, it's quite long lasting. And again, it's a really delicious offering. If you haven't tried it, I recommend it, because I haven't seen the wheat note come up frequently in fragrances, if at all. Almonds and vanilla do tend to come up quite frequently, so it's definitely something that I experience in fragrances. But the fact that they added the wheat in this turns the fragrance into a different direction and makes it more unique than other fragrances. And is there the note of almond blossoms in here? My mom has an almond tree. I kind of grew up around almond trees. My family planted them. We consume them. In fact, I recently posted about almonds, green almonds, because I was visiting family and we picked a bunch of green almonds. And I love the flavor of green almonds before they're completely ripe and dry. This, I don't think it's the idea of the green almonds, maybe slight bit under there, but for me, it's the almonds after it's, dried, but not salted, roasted and salted and things like that. This is more about like a marzipan-y bit of an effect happening here, but the cereal is so prominent. And even though I feel like it makes the fragrance stand out with that cereal-y effect, the grainy kind of cereal experience, the wheat, absolute, but it doesn't overwhelm the almonds that are in here. I think the almonds that are in here, it's basically the star, because that's the name, Chemin d'Amande, the almond path, the almond route. And very, very delicious, I think. It just makes for a very unique experience. And even though, as I said, we've experienced almonds quite a bit in fragrances, vanilla, of course, comes up so often. The fact that they've thrown in the wheat in here is giving me a bit of a, a different route for the almond route. Is what I'm trying to say. But so delicious. Actually, this is quite a delicious experience. It is something that I enjoy, and it adds a very cozy layer to the fragrance. The experience is very cozy and comfy. And it also puts me in the place of baking, because I've baked quite a bit with ingredients like almonds and vanilla, and maybe even wheat as well, because you kind of mix these kind of ingredients together before you put it in the the oven to bake and things like that. So the smell is quite like that, and that actually adds another layer of familiarity as far as a gourmand fragrance goes. So this is a great gourmand fragrance. Once again, super delicious and a great offering from the house of Une Nuit Nomade. I find it to be very original. Some of you might not. For me, I'm finding it very original because of the wheat note, and the wheat note is just perfectly blended together. And it is not necessarily the syrupiest. And if you've ever baked, you understand the kind of the texture. It's all dry at first until you're adding like liquids in there and eggs and things like that to kind of moisten up all those dry ingredients. This doesn't have too much of that. Maybe the idea of an almond milk might be a bit, happening here because there's a slight creaminess under there. But for me, it wears dry and it smells dry as well. But if you like something unique for a gourmand, I highly recommend you try it and figure out if it's something that you like. There is the bitterness of the almonds as well, and this is what kind of gives me the idea of marzipan, because marzipan for me is not necessarily super dry. It's kind of creamy, and the texture is not as dry as this. And the dryness, I think, is coming from the wheat the most, because for me, wheat is on the dry side. But there is a bit of that bitterness in here, which kind of gives me the idea of marzipan. But super delicious. I think if you love almonds, this is going to satisfy. I love that about it, and love consuming almonds and also smelling it in fragrances as well. So that's Chemin d'Amande, the latest Extrait De Parfum from the house of Une Nuit Nomade. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the other Extrait De Parfums as well, and then tell you which ones are my favorites. Well, I think they're all really great. The one that doesn't really click with me too much is the Silver Saffron, but I think the reason, because of it's not clicking with me as much, there is a metallic side to that, and which is traditionally prominent in a saffron fragrance. There's a metallic effect that happens with saffron in general. Saffron is a very expensive ingredient. It's also, consumed in the Middle East, but you can also drink it as a tea. A couple of its pistils are dropped into, like hot water, and then you can drink it. I've actually bought lots of saffron when I was in Dubai a couple of years ago. When you walk into a saffron store, there's the smell of leather, and in fragrances, they make saffron. They use saffron not only with like leather accords, but also to take the place of something that smells leather. For me, saffron smells a bit more like fabric leather. There's a bit of that kind of difference, not animalic whatsoever, but then it tends to go metallic as well. But silver saffron has notes of raspberry, iris, of course, saffron, papyrus, and myrrh. So it's giving you a bit of ambery effect in the dry down, and also the fruitiness up top. But the fact that they have iris in here, it's got a powdery touch. And then of course the papyrus giving you that kind of antique woods, aged barrels, kind of woodiness to the overall fragrance experience. The fruitiness is prominent for sure, and the saffron is really, really prominent because it's the star of the show. And when they add the word silver, what's silver? It's metal, right? So that's the thing. You get metallic effect from saffron quite a bit. Sometimes sharper than others. Here, I think it's highlighted because it's called silver saffron. It's for sure a metallic take on saffron. But I feel like the raspberry kind of tones it down. It adds a fruity sweetness. The iris, it's powdery. That kind of takes away from the metallic effect as well. And then of course the myrrh giving you a bit of a resinous ambery thing. I don't hate the fragrance, but it's not my all-time favorite from the line. But I think some of you might like it if you like metallic, colder fragrances. And even though it's got an ambery effect in the dry down, for me, the fact that it has the name silver, saffron goes metallic, it is definitely a bit on the colder side. So that's Silver Saffron, Extrait De Parfum. That launched late last year with the next two fragrances. All right, well, the next one we're going to talk about is Jardin de MISFAH Extrait De Parfum. And remember, as I said, Jardin de MISFAH, the OG, has been a favorite of mine since 2001. I first discovered the brand at Javoy in Paris in 2019. I was quickly intrigued, liked a lot of them, but I don't think I discovered this fragrance at the time. I don't even remember if it was launched. It wasn't until 2 years later at ZGO Perfumery here in San Francisco that I discovered the brand there, and I walked out with a bottle of Jardin de MISFAH because I loved it so much. And for me, it was a warmer, summer day, and it really comes alive in the heat. But what have they done with the Extrait De Parfum? I feel like they have intensified it and giving it more of an ambery edge. And I might prefer the OG over the extract because I like that it's not as heavy and dense, and it does project a bit more for me as well. But the notes breakdown for the Extrait De Parfum of Jardin de MISFAH is Davana, Rose Absolute, dates, honey, and of course almonds. And I feel like the notes breakdown is so delicious. It's not gourmand for me, and it does have the honey and the almonds and the dates as well. But that combo is so super intoxicating. I absolutely love that combo. But let's go ahead and quickly smell the two different variations here. Let me know if you guys have compared the OG Jardin de MISFAH to the Extrait De Parfum. And which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the OG original one, or do you prefer the extract? I don't hate the extract. I love it because it's the same DNA. But the fact that the original has a brightness, a bit more freshness, I should say, I like that about it. But if you want it deeper and richer, I think the Extrait De Parfum should satisfy. And the rose is really highlighted here with the dates. To me, it acts like a Middle Eastern sweet treat with like rose water and dates and almonds. In fact, if you've never had almonds inside of dates, one of my favorite delicacies. It's so delicious, also healthy. Well, the dates has too much sugar, but you know, you can also drizzle it with a little almonds. And I thought the original had the saffron note in it as well, and you can have a couple of the little pistils droppings on top of the saffron pistils on top of the dates that are stuffed with the almonds. But that's the effect I get with it. But for me, I think the Davana adds a bit of a tartness. There's something tart about the fragrance in general, which I quite like. But when you compare the original with the extract is so much deeper, and it goes into more of an ambery direction. It's a lot heavier, but it's still sweet, definitely resinous. There's a nuttiness about it for sure. But I feel like also it gets a bit leathery with the extract in comparison to the Eau de Parfum, the original. So for me, I prefer the original, but I don't hate the Extrait De Parfum. It's the same DNA pretty much, but just more concentrated and things like that. But the next fragrance turned out to be one of my favorite fragrances of last year. It's Estrella de la Mañana, this one right here. Really, really awesome fragrance. But once again, it's a vanilla, but this time we're working with a dark vanilla, not your typical sugary vanilla. And similar with Chemin de Amande, it's not your traditional gourmand. This to me is not a gourmand whatsoever. It's taking the leather into darker territories, to smoky, leathery territories, and not your typical leather that you would consider gourmand. So if you like vanilla that's more on the masculine side and you're into leather, smoke, and things like that, this should satisfy. I think it's really solid, really kind of on the rough side as well. The birch is providing the leatheriness and the smokiness, but there's also cocoa and benzoin here. Cocoa as in cocoa powder, chocolatey. Benzoin providing an ambery effect. It's a long-lasting fragrance, overwhelming, super intense, and a really, really great fresh take on a vanilla, which everybody's making a sweet, syrupy, sugary vanilla. This is not that. And again, I would consider a masculine take on vanilla. And if you hate the idea of vanilla, because I absolutely do not hate the idea of vanilla, but I want different types of vanilla, a variety of different types. And this satisfies the more smoky, leathery vanilla experience. It's just so good, really, really great, and great to experience it and enjoy it. So that was my favorite of the trio of Extrait De Parfums. I would say Estrella de la Mañana is my favorite of the extracts. Chemin de Amande is my second favorite of the extracts. Jardin de MISFAH extract is my third favorite of the extracts. And then of course, Silver Saffron is my fourth favorite. I'm preferring Jardin de MISFAH original much, much more. I'm not ranking that here with the mix. I'm only ranking the 4 different extracts. Really wonderful job with the Estrella de la Mañana and the Chemin de Amande. Those are 2 delicious fragrances, but not your typical fragrances, you know? If you're expecting gourmands going into these fragrances, they're not. But if you're expecting something different with a, gourmand style, then you're going to be very happy with those two fragrances. Anyway, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.